people get upset if you tell them something they're not ready to receive. Or you're not real, they shut it down and then they want to leave. It's spirit deciding what they want to bring to you that day, that message.
So essentially you're just acting as a channel.
Absolutely, that's what I always say. It's just, I'm working for them.
So today I'm here with Shauna Hanlon, who is a tap dancing medium.
Correct.
Right? And where is it primarily that you're setting up?
So I normally do the tap dancing medium show at the Lunar Fair, which is a bi-monthly night market that pops up all over New Jersey during the warm months, the spring and the summer. It's like a moon festival, so it pops up on the new and the full moon, so I perform there.
And you've become relatively a popular attraction there.
I do have a little bit of a following of people that come and see me at every fair. It's a small group, but it is growing. So yes, absolutely.
Just to understand, so you get up on a soapbox, right?
Correct.
What can we explain what a soapbox is? Because I'm sure 90% of people don't even know what that means.
It's kind of like an old school concept. It's a little bit of a carnival, vaudeville type of a thing. It's just a wooden box, and I get up on top of it to kind of elevate myself over the crowd, because it's usually, we're in fields, fairs, parking lots, things like that at the venues. So it's kind of like a little mini stage, if you will. And I get up there and I do a gallery reading, but I do dance on the soapbox before that, because it's wooden, which is a great surface for tap dancing. So that's kind of how it got matched up.
I think that that's really interesting, and it's kind of niche, right? It gives you a little bit of something very specific that you do. And why is it that you're incorporating tap dancing into being a medium?
So I've always been a dancer since I was 3 years old. My whole life I've been a dancer. Tap dancing specifically, it's something that I feel is a big part of who I am. So when I get into circle and I'm channeling for other people, I felt like it was just such a nice way to give a piece of myself while they're sharing with me. So it's like I share with you a piece of my heart, and then I will bring messages through, or your family and friends can share through me so that you can receive validations.
Do you feel like the tap dancing helps you to like center yourself in a more fluent place, so that's why you're doing it, or is it part of like a gimmick to some degree?
It's interesting you say that. I have had people view it as a gimmick, mentors and things of that nature that have specific viewpoints of how they think the work should be done. But for me, I feel like it brings people's attention over to what I'm doing, and kind of draws the crowd so that I can work with the people that decide to stand in front of me. And I always set the intention before I work that I call in the people that need the message. So if you're just walking by and you feel like you want to stop, sometimes those are the people that get picked.
Right. So essentially the tap dancing is a way to generate the crowd.
It is. It does kind of clear my head too, because I do it before I do channel. I kind of do the little tap dancing show and then I go into the reading. So it does clear my space a little bit too, but yes.
I saw an association when I was going through your social media and things like that, and the thought that I had was I'm wondering if this actually helps her to kind of focus in and hone in by keeping herself busy, physically busy, that she's able to connect herself on a more spiritual kind of plane.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. I've done dancing for so long, so I feel like I can kind of put myself in a subconscious state while I do it. I don't really have to think about it. It just comes out of me. So I do feel like it does help to that extent where I can kind of feel the energy without talking to people before I really go into it. It's like I can feel my way in.
Yeah, and kind of what I was saying to you before we started was that I've known you for many years now, and I respect you and I respect what you do.
Thank you.
And I've also been on the other side of your channeling and have found you to have great accuracy, actually very weird accuracy to some degree.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so that's why I was like, let me go in the direction of this interview, because I have found you to be credible. Which again, I'm a very skeptical person, which you might already kind of know.
I can feel that from you, yes.
I'm skeptical across the board, because I feel like we live in this world where people don't have to really prove anything. That, like I was saying to you before, someone can decide tomorrow that they're a medium, have good social media presence, go and become more popular as a medium than you are overnight. And they might not know anything about being a medium or what that is. And that leads me to my next question, which is, what is a medium?
So a medium is someone who can have conversations with energies or spirits of people that have passed on. The mediumship, for me, the way I was learned and the way that I experience it, it's a conversation. So you ask a question, you receive the information back, you interpret it, and you deliver it. So the simple answer is a spirit conversation, but it is somebody who can make that contact.
But is there a difference between being psychic and being a medium?
I love that you asked that question. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people call it a psychic medium, because all mediums are psychics, but not all psychics are mediums. So if you call yourself a psychic medium, it's quite redundant. It's like calling yourself a psychic. So I do feel like I actually know, because I learned in my training, that all mediums are psychic, because you have to be able to put yourself into that subconscious state to connect to energies and retain information and get information that other people maybe won't be able to feel on their own.
So what, in your definition, what is psychic?
Psychic is being able to, it's like a heightened sensitivity to energies, feelings of people. A lot of it has to do with energy in spaces as well. I can walk into a room and automatically feel what the energy of the people in the room is. Is everyone happy? Is everyone angry? Is everyone irritable? It's about just a knowing, but there's all different ways to sense that knowing, like clairvoyance, clairaudience, those type of things.
So psychic essentially is heightened intuition, if I can understand
Correct.
it simply.
A heightened sensitivity that's connected to your intuition.
And we could go in the direction of saying intuition is based off of information that I can't see, but I feel.
Correct. It's feeling, or even a knowing. Sometimes people just know things and they don't know where the information comes from. That's why I feel like it's so interesting to be a medium, because I can actually find out where that source of information is coming from and validate it. So it's not just me saying, I feel this, and I don't know why I feel this. I can pinpoint it and say, I feel this because this person is telling me, and this person is this person because of X, Y, and Z, and then you could say, yes, I know who that is. I know where that's coming from.
I think that a lot of people have an understanding of being a psychic as being able to tell the future. Do you believe that a psychic can tell the future?
I feel like there's a thin line there, because the future is always changeable. We have free will, we make decisions every day that can change what's going to happen 10 minutes from now. So we can say that we feel like something is going to happen, but it doesn't necessarily make that finite or that it's absolutely going to happen, because anything could change at any time, because we all make choices that affect everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like you can get an idea of what may happen, what may come, and I always deliver it that way. Like, I feel like this might happen, but there's always a chance that it doesn't. So I would say sometimes there's accuracy there, but sometimes it just isn't meant to be the way you feel it in the moment. It doesn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, for me, because I also consider myself to be an intuitive person, but my intuition, I think, goes more in the direction of cause and effect. Meaning that if I see you putting your hand towards a fire and I say, hey, you're going to get burned, and then once you touch the fire, you get burned, that wasn't really psychic or intuition. That was just cause and effect. That's me seeing what's currently going on around me and then being able to evaluate what the effect of that will be. Yeah. And I really think that for me, that's my sense of pride, being able to see big picture things and then determining what's coming from what I'm seeing currently in front of my face, which I think is something anybody can really develop and harness, where I think that psychic abilities, or what we're talking about here, being mediumship, or these kinds of heightened intuitions, divine inspiration, are things that are not really like a physical tool you can develop, but more something that you have to spiritually cultivate.
I would agree, but I also believe that everyone has the ability to. So you can absolutely cultivate it. I feel that. I just feel like some people are more sensitive than others to it and can open up easier. But I feel like it is kind of being able to trust yourself is a big part of intuition and a big part of psychic. Any type of psychic work or anything psychic related, because your intuition is basically your inner voice talking to you. So if you don't listen to it and you don't believe what it's telling you, then you're going to ignore it and the intuition is lost. So the connection with the self is very important on a spiritual level, because you have to have that trust.
So would you say that being a medium is a spiritual practice?
I would, absolutely.
And do you consider yourself to be a spiritual person?
I believe in spirit, and I say that I work in spirituality. I don't really like to label myself in any way. It's a lot that I even call myself a medium. I like to say that I'm psychic, a medium. That's who I am.
But your practice is spiritual and you're pursuing a spiritual lifestyle.
Absolutely. I have my own spiritual practices, but they're mine. I don't follow any guideline or any type of religion or anything like that. I do what feels good to me, whether that's I get up and I dance every day. Like I put on loud music, dance around my house. For me, that's how I expel energy. That's how I call energy in. Movement is big for me. That's a spiritual practice. Every day I do that for myself to connect with my higher self. But not everybody feels that's a spiritual practice. That's why I say for me, I have my own kind of rituals that I do.
How did you become a medium?
Interestingly enough, I feel like I always had the ability. It used to happen through dreams for me a lot when I was younger. I had a lot of crazy experiences during my subconscious state. I used to have that where you felt like you were outside of your body. I forget what they call it.
Out of body experience?
Yeah, where like you can't get back in, like you're stuck out and you can't get back in while you're sleeping.
Sleep paralysis?
Yeah, sleep paralysis. I used to have that all the time. But then people started passing away that were close to me and I would dream about them, but they felt real. Like I would wake up and really feel like I was just with this person to the point where I was like shaken by it. And it wasn't until I sat with the medium myself, I had lost a close friend and I was trying to reconnect. And I went to see a woman that I had seen a few times. And in that reading, it actually came out that I had the ability to connect. So I studied under her for a few years and she gave me structure and kind of showed me how to work with it and not have it run my life or make me feel uncomfortable about it.
I'm wondering, is this something you can turn off and on? Like when you walked in here and you sat down, one of the first things you said is that like you're getting bombarded.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so is it something that you can turn off and on? I
can choose to ignore it. That's how I like to put it. I can't really ever turn it off. It's always there.
So it's not a switch?
It's not really a switch. It's what I'm bringing my awareness to. If I'm not going to pay attention to it and I'm choosing to ignore it, it does take a lot of energy on my part to do that. But when I'm in crowded spaces and there's a lot of people around, when I do these fairs and festivals, I really have to be careful because I can get overwhelmed, overstimulated, panic attacks, things like that. Because I'm a feeler. I feel everything, so it can be very overwhelming. But for me, I don't really turn it off. It's more of like I have to kind of just ignore it, and I tap in when I feel like I need to. And that goes with when I'm around people. I don't really bombard people with readings either because of that. Like I don't walk up to somebody and go, oh, who's around you? What's happening? I don't psychically go into someone's energy. For me, that's invasive. So that's ethics. I don't do that. Yeah.
Well, only when someone approaches the table do you read.
Correct. If they ask me to.
Yeah.
If somebody's coming to me for a reading specifically or they ask me a question, then I'm happy to give them the information or help them out.
Yeah, I feel like that's very practical to advice as well because you really can't give advice to someone who's not asking for it.
Correct. And that's a very slippery slope because people get upset if you tell them something they're not ready to receive,
right.
Or they don't want to receive.
Even if they're asking for it.
Yeah, that's happened as well. I've had a couple instances where I've sat with people and they get very upset. You know, the person that they expected to come through wasn't who came through, and then they just you're not real. They shut it down and then they want to leave. So you really just have to be open to it because it's spirit deciding what they want to bring to you that day, that message. I can go in and get information for people, but I always say that we're living life and we have to live it from our own perspective. So we don't want to tap in too much because then they're like leading you through. You have to experience it. So I feel like to let them bring in the information and the messages that they feel you need that in that moment is always the best way to approach it.
So essentially you're just acting as a channel.
Absolutely. That's what I always say. It's just I'm working for them.
So when you sat down and you said that you felt bombarded.
I always do when I'm here. There's so much energy where you are in any space where you've had your warehouse and your crystals and whatever it is that you're doing, you attract energy. I don't know if you know this about yourself, but it's like a magnet to you. And anytime I come around you in your space, I feel it. Like it raises my vibration and I can feel all of the energy.
So I'm causing the overwhelming.
It's not you, it's just the energy around you, which is not a bad thing. It means you're on a high vibration and I'm reacting to that because I'm on the same vibration. I feel like that's why we kind of have a good rapport because we understand that energetic level.
Yeah.
It's up here, it's not down here.
Like as you sit down and I see your facial expressions, I see your energy changing, I see the process, but what is going on actually?
It's just all feelings. It's so funny. It's like just wanting to say things sometimes. Like it's a really bad habit that I have where I feel like I cut people off sometimes, but sometimes they just send things out of my mouth and I don't even know what it is. So a lot of times I'm trying to temper that when I'm around people where I feel like there's like spirit wants like to speak through me sometimes, and I have to shut that down because it's not the appropriate time. So a lot of times for me it manifests in a little bit of anxiety. Sometimes it makes me feel nervous because I don't want to overstep or say the wrong thing or have something to come out that maybe I shouldn't say, which is a very big thing about what I do. I'm very ethical, so I'm very careful about how I deliver things. So I feel like a lot of it manifests in anxiety and nerves for me because I just feel it all, and it's all in here. It's always from the gut because that's where a lot of energy comes in and out of your body.
So I think one of the most practical questions I can ask here now is, how do you know what you're actually communicating with? Like you say that you're communicating with a deceased loved one or a spirit, but how do you know what you're communicating with for sure?
I ask it, and a lot of times I know things can mask as other things, so you have to be careful about the energies that you work with, because there are dark energies that can kind of come in and try to pretend that they're for the good and they're not for the good. I set intentions. I have like my own spiritual team and guides and things that I work with when I go within into meditations and things like that and prepare myself and ask them what they want me to do, and what I'm supposed to deliver that day. And they help kind of create a filter or a net to only let in what I'm calling in. So I'm setting intentions for only family, friends, and loved ones. How I know what they are, who they are, like I said, it's a conversation. I'm simply asking.
Have you ever been tricked?
Sometimes they come in layered, so yes. Sometimes it's like somebody and I'm starting to describe a certain person and then all of a sudden it flips and somebody's like, I don't know who that is. And a lot of times I'll shut that down and just try to kind of start over again.
So it's a slippery slope.
It is. You have to know when to put the guard up, when to put the boundary down, because you really, if you let something in too far, there are, spiritual attachments and things like that can kind of hook in. You have to be careful what you're working with.
Well, I'm not here to get into my own personal process around this kind of stuff, but I do remember a piece of advice you gave me, which is that you do call in your spirit guides or whatever it may be and tell them, hey, I need you to be like a security system.
Yeah, bodyguards. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, bodyguards for me as I'm doing this, make sure the wrong thing doesn't get in. So how do you know what those spirit guides are, and what is the spirit guide?
So it's a spiritual concept, a spirit guide. It's the idea that we are all sent here with almost like a spiritual liaison to guide us on the journey that we were put here to accomplish our path. They say everybody has one or more. In my experience, everybody has at least one, because usually when I tap into spirit, I do usually find a guide standing behind people. Some people have 3 or 4, some people have 1. It all depends on the person and their journey. They also can cycle in and out depending on what you're doing in your life. So when you were in a more spiritual path, you may have had more spiritual guides. Now you're walking in more like a business mindset, so your guides may be of that mindset as well to kind of guide you on that path.
How do you determine what is a spirit guide from what's not? Is there a certain look or feeling or vibration?
The feeling for me, when I tap in and I can actually visualize who's coming in to work with me, the spirit guides for me always come in all in black. Family, friends, and loved ones are usually light energy or in color for me, but the spirit guides, any type of spiritual energy that's coming in to assist and not there as like a family, friend, loved one, usually comes in like black for me.
Well, as you're saying that, I'm sure a lot of people are going to go in the direction that's obvious, which is that if it's coming in black, isn't it evil?
I would disagree, because black for me is a color of protection. I feel like it's a color of grounding, and it's a color of everything put together always creates black. So for me, that encompasses everything. I feel like it's not even just saying like their essence is dark, because they're not of a dark essence. They are the lightest of energy, and I don't even feel them when they're around because they're so high vibrational. But at the same time, if they were dark, I would feel the negative energy. So I feel like that's how I can differentiate. But I know them. It's like once you work with them for a little while and they come in, you know them, you recognize them.
So what happens when a person passes away?
When a person passes away, from my experience, what I've seen or what I've been shown, I've never had a near-death experience myself, so I've never experienced the process, because I know some people, their psychic gifts and things get, expanded through that. I have seen that it's basically like a separation of the spirit of the body, and it just kind of elevates and it goes through like a light portal. But in my experience, I'm always on the other side where the family's receiving. I'm never going in looking at it from the perspective of the person who's dying. I'm being shown by the person who's in spirit.
Is there a difference between the spirit and the soul?
No, same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially when the body discontinues its function, the soul leaves the body.
Correct.
And then goes where?
It goes back up to source, which is what I call where we all come from. It's a spiritual realm where all of the spirit resides. It's just another plane of existence. It's here, but it's up a little bit higher.
So I guess then the obvious question that would follow that is, how can you communicate with a spirit that's no longer in this world?
Because the energy still exists. The body isn't here, but the energy doesn't just go away.
But doesn't it return, like you said, to source?
It goes to source, but you go up there and you're received by the people that are there to receive you. If you have a traumatic passing, a lot of times they're shielded when they get there, and they're kind of taken in by their guides, and they're put into almost like a cocoon so that they can recover from what just happened. So if you were in, like, say, a terrible accident or had like a very traumatic physical experience through the passing,
right,
when you get there, you can be shaken. Your soul can have not a great energy.
Just happened, right?
Yeah. So you need time to readjust. So everybody always goes back in before they're kind of set back free. But in my experience, spirit is free to go between the two realms.
It sounds very digital.
It feels like it's almost like the Matrix, like the way it looks at it. Like it's like a lot of different levels of dimensions and like depths. If that makes sense. Like if you look at something, you could see all the depth behind it. It's a very strange experience inside of my head. It can be very hard to explain because I just experience it. But it almost looks like the Matrix is what I would say. Like it looks like grids, and you can kind of see behind the grids. And for me, it's just like energy that travels through the grids. Does that make sense?
It does, but it opens up so many new questions for me that I didn't really have before, which I'll just, the major one that's on my list is, so okay, let's just say that the spirit leaves the body, goes back to this source that you're talking about, or it goes through this process of reintegrating itself because it's been through trauma.
Yes.
Right? Then what, it just gets recycled and comes back, and then we have reincarnation?
It depends on your choice. If you don't believe in reincarnation, obviously that's not going to make sense to you, but I do feel like we always have a choice to experience another lifetime if we feel like we need it. So the way that I view it is you're coming here to do X, Y, and Z. You know, you create a purpose for yourself. Everything I feel like is predetermined from what I've seen. You kind of decide where you want to be so that you can learn the lessons you need to learn. That's kind of like the purpose of why we're here.
Yeah.
It's a lesson. It's school, right? So I feel like you come down here and you figure that out, and then when you go back, you kind of have to see how you did. So it's almost like you get to watch it back like a playback. What did I learn? What didn't I learn? Do I want to come back and cycle in and figure out what I didn't learn again? Do I want to relearn some things?
What would be the purpose of that?
It's all to strengthen the soul for source. So for me, we're all connected to that one source where we all come from, a creation,
would you call
a
that
creator.
God?
It's a God, of God, whatever you believe. I feel like there is a source. So religion just leads you back to that source in whatever way your beliefs kind of tie into it.
So do you think religion's calling that source God?
I do. I feel like that source is God, where we all come from, the creator of creation. I do see it, for me, it's a big ball of just white, blinding light, almost like the sun, but white. And that's what it looks like to me. It's just a big ball of energy, but we're all born of it, and we all have pieces of it within us. And we're here to kind of strengthen and learn and grow so that we can go back and make source stronger. We're all of it, so we're working for it all the time.
Well, do we have to actually be in some sort of state of purity in order to return to that source? Can you not be able to have access to source because you're not clean enough or pure enough, and then you're kind of forced to come back here to get yourself more clean?
I feel like that does happen for very low vibrational existences. So people that are maybe like murderers, serial killers, things like that, people that hurt people. You know, people that do bad things.
Yeah, they got to figure some things out.
They have to cycle back in and figure it out. They're not allowed to reconnect with dark energy, is how it feels to me. It's like bringing darkness into that light source. It's blocked, so you're cycled back in. Me personally, I don't believe in eternal damnation or anything like that, because I don't feel like that would be productive. Like, why come here to just destroy the energy? If source didn't want the energy to exist, it would destroy it on its own. So I just feel like everything is an experience, and I also do feel like there's a purity there. You did ask me about the purity of the source. I don't feel like we are impure of what we experience. I think there are things that we look at here that are big things that are actually minor when it's all said and done. So I feel like a lot of stuff that people put a lot of energy into, like how we dress, sometimes how we talk, how we act, as long as we're treating people the right way and living in the right way and here for the right reasons and not hurting anyone. I feel like that's the most important thing.
That's the gig.
Yeah, that's the gig. That's it. You're here to learn, but just do it with genuine authenticity and love is the main point.
So I'm going to kind of bypass the next question I have for you because I want to ask one more question regarding this subject, which is that why do then bad things happen to good people? Since we're on this topic,
yes.
In your opinion.
In my opinion, I feel like some things we have to experience. So it's like that, it's kind of cliche to say, but you would never know what good is if you didn't know what bad is. How could good exist if bad didn't exist? A lot of times we need to experience that duality in our lifetime. So, sometimes unfortunate things happen. I feel like there are extenuating circumstances where people are in the wrong place at the wrong time and terrible things happen that weren't supposed to happen. But I do believe...
Is that pot luck?
I think that's just life. Like, I think we have free choice. Like I said, like somebody could kind of have a mental break and react in a way where you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and something terrible happens to you, just for an example. That doesn't mean that was written into your life experience. It just means that it was just a coincidence, because I do feel like that those do happen because we have free will. So to say coincidence is nothing, I think that would be weird because you choose everything. So how could you not make something change or make something different without your free will?
Well, I think I'm going to get very specific about something, which is, a question that I'm going to probably ask whoever I get in front of me to some degree, or try to get to this place, which is that, okay, so let's just take God forbid a million times situation.
Okay.
Right? We hear very commonly now, especially in the entertainment industry and all of these things about child sex trafficking, child sex slavery, all of these kinds of things, which are absolutely
horrid, yes.
How that even on the table is beyond my understanding, but how would that come into somebody's movie? What is the relevance of that?
That's hard to unpack because, if you ask me as a human being, I feel like nobody deserves to experience that, on that side of it. No child, no person deserves to experience that.
Right, but why is it on the table?
It's on the table because evil exists. There are people that have evil agendas and evil mindsets,
and we're not able to
hearts.
Protect ourselves from that.
We can protect ourselves from it, but I feel like sometimes it just, like I said, it's people's free will, and if someone is there and someone's coming in to do something bad, that's where your intuition comes into play. So a lot of times if you feel something's off, remove yourself from it, because I feel like that's spirit trying to protect us from those situations. But a lot of us aren't connected into that to really react to it all the time. I've been in situations where something just doesn't feel right. I've left and then I've heard that there was a good reason why I left. So trusting yourself is usually the best way to protect yourself from things like that. But again, it's free will and choice, and we just don't know. Sometimes things happen and it's unfortunate, but there is evil in this world.
Going back again, now we've opened up this new gateway of information. So what are your thoughts then on God? Give me the breakdown of what that actually looks like, because we were talking about this idea of source, and I was asking you if that's God to you, and I didn't really get a clear line of understanding. So
to me, that would be like what you would say is God. I look at it like it's just where we all come from. I don't worship it. Do you think worshiping it has an effect? I think you're putting your energy outside of yourself, and I don't think that's always a bad thing, because we do need faith to some extent as human beings. I feel like faith is a good thing, but we just have to be careful where we're putting our faith. I feel like a lot of people put so much faith in that is the end all be all, and at the end of the day, it's something that you really can't validate or see. So you're living your existence based on what someone else is telling you is good for you. So I feel like to follow it too strongly can be of a detriment. I feel like there's always a fine line of what feels right. So for me, like, I'm not a really religious person. I very much go with a feeling. I live in love. I treat everyone with love. I walk around this world and I just try to light it up. I'm kind to everyone. I try not to hurt people. I feel like that's really the most important thing you could do with your life. I feel like if you are focused so much on pleasing an entity or a community or a group of people.
Well, it's not just an entity.
Well, it's where you come from. It's your source.
Yeah,
it's your source. But it's whatever you believe in. There's entities below that is what I'm talking about.
So do you think that a person can pray to God or pray to that source and actually have that source recognize your prayer and then give you the assistance that you're asking for?
I do, because you're connected to it energetically. So it feels you like you feel it. When people say they can feel God.
Yeah.
You're feeling your connection to where you come from. That's your divine connection to the source. So I do feel like you absolutely can connect into it to say, hey, I need you, I need help, I need this, and be open and willing to receive it. People do experience that every day where they feel like God delivers. So I would never negate that, because I do feel like we are absolutely connected to it energetically, for sure.
What are your thoughts on the devil?
The devil, it's interesting. I thought about this for a long time because it was something that I questioned, because I felt like it was such like a hot button thing to say to people, and it was something that you read about, but like nobody ever really defined it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's evil. It's just bad intentions, bad energy, people that mean harm. It's a negativity, and you can find that in so many places. It's not just one person. It's not the devil. The devil lives in a lot of different things, in my opinion, that actually lower your vibration and kind of take you out of that light source where you came from.
So your understanding of the devil isn't singular?
No, it's energetic for me. It's an energy. It's a negative energy, low vibrational, and like I said, it disconnects you from the light source where you came from.
And where is that coming from?
I feel it's earthly.
So it's connected to this dimension?
I feel like it's the human experience. It's how people are affected by the human experience. A lot of people come in with a certain purpose. They're affected by the things around them. They get sucked into things that kind of, muddy that. And then, they fall into negative things. Some people just let it take them over.
Are you saying to some degree that the devil, which is a low vibrational energy that's permeating our existence to some degree, mm-hmm. is categorically the result of unfulfilled potential?
Unfulfilled potential, anger, and it's funny because I was raised Catholic, even though I'm not religious. But you do hear about like the deadly sins. There are 7 deadly sins. Yeah. I'm so uneducated about this stuff, so please correct me if you know about it. I don't. But I feel like a lot of that has truth to it. So being greedy, being envious of people.
Gluttonous, lustful.
Yeah, you have to look at things from your own perspective and live your life in a way that's feeling good for you. People that end up in those evil spaces, I feel like don't want to focus on that, so they look at other means to ignore that. Instead of doing the hard work that they're here to do, they take the outlet of like temptation, basically, and it makes an easier path.
So do you think that there are souls coming into this world with an evil purpose?
I believe
that happens here.
I think it's happened. I think that evil is born sometimes of evil. I feel like our energy all comes from the light source, but say that you were a terrible person in a life, you cycle through it, sends you back in. That doesn't necessarily mean you're healed and you're starting from 1. You're still carrying that negative energy. So I feel like just over time, how long have we been here on this planet? That can spread of the souls that have been cycling back in because they've never learned and they're still dark and they're not ready to connect back into the light source.
Let's branch off now from God and the devil and go in the direction of angels and demons.
Okay.
Right. So do you have any experience with angels or demons or both, or what are your thoughts on this?
I've never really worked with angels. I don't, I'm not one of those people that pulls like angel cards and oracle readings and all of that. I don't really do that. I mainly work with family and friends. It's a grief work is what I do. But I do know people that work with entities from the underworld, the dark goddesses and energies like that. It exists, it's very real, but it's a little bit misunderstood from what I've learned about it. So angels, I feel like, are always there. I feel like those are protectors. They kind of go with your guys. They're here to kind of be there, overseeing to make sure that the people that need to be safe are safe.
So would you prescribe spirit guide to angel? Could we categorize those together?
I feel like they're in the same grouping, but they're different.
Okay.
I feel like angels are more evolved. Angels have kind of been in the spiritual realm for a very, very long time, and they are of the most pure essence. Angels are like the purest essence, I feel like, that you can get, like the closest to source.
Okay. And so then, but then what would a spirit guide be in juxtaposition?
A spirit guide is somebody who's lived here, who's been to Earth, who's had experiences. People that you know could end up being guides for you if they pass during your lifetime. They can kind of go in and go up to whoever makes those decisions, because I do feel like there is a spiritual council and things that go on. There is an organization to the spirit world, for sure. I feel like people can go there and say, hey, I really love this person. I'm not there anymore. Can I do this? But you have to be of a certain amount of lifetimes. You have to be a certain involvement of your soul to be able to come in and guide someone else. But those are people, spirit guides, that have been here and lived life because they understand it on a level because they've experienced it.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you go back into that underworld comment that you made and explain that to me a little bit more about the demon underworld?
The dark entities.
Yeah. Can we talk about that?
A lot of that is misunderstood. I'm not familiar with a lot of it. I only know a little bit because, like I said, I know people that work with it. I know a little bit about the dark goddesses like Hecate, Freya. I don't know if you've ever heard of some of these. Persephone, people talk about them sometimes. They are goddesses that have been through difficult times, and they are almost become deities.
Hold on, what is a goddess?
A goddess is someone who's an evolved soul that actually helped people in their lifetime. This is what I understand a goddess to be. Somebody that had good intentions, but maybe had to take a dark path to help someone. So if someone is going through a really difficult time and they need someone to really get them to stand up for themselves, speak their truth, really give them the confidence to be who they are, stand in their power, that's the type of energy that a dark goddess would hold. It's like coming from a place of necessity and guidance, not so much light. It's more to guide you here, because here there's a lot of dark energy. Up there,
are we associating that with
exist.
evil?
No, I don't feel like it's evil because they're helpful. You just have to work with them in a specific way because they're a little volatile. So they work fast and quick. So if you ask them for something, it's going to come in. And it may not be in the way that you want it to come in, but it's like if you want to change something in your life, it may change in a way that is hard to swallow, but at the end of the day, you're getting what you asked for. But it's not necessarily like of a dark entity where it's like a devil. They're trying to help you. They're trying to guide you, but they do it with force and strength, and not so much like light, happy, love, and light. There's a duality to everything. There's a balance to everything.
Judgment and mercy.
Absolutely.
Do you believe in demons?
I believe there are demonic entities. I have never had experience with them. I don't really know anything about them, but I do believe they exist. I don't really put like limitations on anything just because of what I've experienced. I feel like that would be foolish of me because I'm surprised every day.
So when we say dark forces, that sounds evil, and I'm sure that everyone who hears this or listens to this is going to go in a direction of making assumptions.
So when I say dark, I don't mean evil. I mean something that has been through something terrible and come out the other end. So now, say you walk through a mud pile, you still have some mud on you, right? You're not completely pure because you've experienced it. So it's still there and it shows. But you don't have to clean it off and be pure about it. You can allow it to fuel you and push you forward and draw strength from the things that happen to you, as opposed to allowing somebody to come in and be like, you're healed, you're fine, everything's fine. It's about living in your existence and being realistic about it. So it's not light, like love and light energy for me. For me, I say dark because it's more of like the things that I feel like Earth is where the darkness is. I feel like life is where we experience the evil and the darkness.
Right.
So to tap into that energy, that's where you get the support to navigate through that, because those entities and energies have been through the darkness and understand how to hold the light to guide you through it.
But I feel like there's a price for that.
I disagree, because a lot of it is working on yourself, and you're asking for evolvement of your soul. You're not asking for anything in exchange. You're not making deals with like a devil to say or something dark.
So what would be an example of the type of help you would ask a dark entity for?
Okay, so for example, if you are experiencing, say you're in an abusive relationship, you're getting like the, just for an example, and I hope this doesn't trigger anybody because I know it could be traumatic to talk about. Okay. You know, somebody's physically hurting you every day, you're emotional, you're upset about it, you're in a weakened state where you cannot pull yourself out of that situation.
Low vibrational state.
Absolutely. So those entities are familiar with that energy. They're not afraid to come in and lift you out of that energy because they exist in it. The light energy isn't coming down into the low vibration. Like, you really have to pull yourself up to a level where you can then connect into it to really feel like you're back connected to source. Because in those times when you're at your lowest, you don't feel connected. You don't feel faithful. You feel despair.
That is true.
If you need to maybe do something dramatic to get yourself out of a situation that's dramatic like that, they can support you in that. Say you need to run away. Say you need to maybe, find means to make money that maybe aren't like what everybody would suggest you to do, but it's what you have to do to get yourself to a better place. Those entities will support you.
I feel like what you're saying has practicality to it, but I also feel like we don't live in a world that is going to be open-minded enough to understand what you're saying.
Agree.
So I think that, for all intents purposes, because it is information that is practical from a perspective. My perspective, no. So from my perspective, when I was in the darkest places of my life, I looked to that light. I chased that light.
Yeah.
I chased that, not like, oh, I'm in the dark tunnel right now, let me connect to dark things to help me get out of the dark tunnel. I always felt that I needed the light to pull me out of the darkness. So that's kind of where I think we're having this kind of where I think we're going to, no, it's not a disconnect. It's a perspective.
It is.
And it's a popular perspective as well. And again, if we're going to live in a liberal world, we have to be accepting of all different perspectives and all different ideas. And not just shut people down and say, hey, I don't agree with you, so you're bad, or you don't agree with me, so I'm bad. We need to be, and again, in this liberal space where we both understand each other's perspectives. But I just want to make it clear, you're not saying that, okay, I want that person to fall in love with me.
No.
We're not talking about...
No, we're not energy manipulation or anything. We're not manipulating people.
We're talking about, I need help getting myself out of a bad situation.
Correct.
You, as an entity, have that comprehension. So I'm calling out for your help to get me out of this, since you have a likability or a compatibility with what I'm going through.
A compassion. Just because they're not evil entities, so there's a compassion there because they've been where you've been. So that's why it's not working with something that's going to hurt you or harm you. They're looking at you from like, I've been there, I know what that feels like. I'm going to help you get out of it. And it's interesting to me how you say you look to the light. A lot of the things that are associated with some of and I don't know a ton about this. I'm speaking about it just in the surface information that I've experienced in my own, because I don't work with this energy either. But they carry the torches through the darkness to lead you to the light, the dark entities. So sometimes you can't find that light yourself. And sometimes you're trying to look for it and it's just not there. Some people don't have anyone to turn to or anywhere to go. They don't know where to find someone to take them down that path to get to the light. Some people are just really alone. But a lot of times it's the misunderstood that reach into that darker energy because they understand it and they can lead you out of it. They're not trying to hold you in it. They want you to evolve and grow and get into a better headspace. They're trying to lead you out of it because they've experienced it, so they have the strength to guide you, is the idealism behind it.
Okay. So what you're talking about, again, is a vibrational energy that is lower. And because when you're in a low vibrational situation, like attracts like.
I mean, I guess I could agree with that. And
I know you very well. I know that you're not calling demons and dark stuff.
I don't work with the energy myself.
I know.
I'm familiar with it.
Let's just make that very clear.
Just having a conversation about
that you're giving context.
Correct.
To something that a lot of us don't know, because God forbid, I would personally, if I found out that I was sitting across from someone who was trying to summon demons and evil and stuff like that, the conversation is over, and please leave.
I would never, ever.
I know you.
Yes, I'm not that person. I only work with spirit. I work with family, friends, and loved ones. I don't do a lot of things on my own, rituals and things like that.
Just important to notice you're just giving context right now.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm just speaking from what I have seen in my experience.
Well, you're in that world.
Yeah. This is what I've seen and what I'm around and what I've experienced. I'm around like people that practice witchcraft, do all kinds of things, but I've never seen anyone do anything for a real negative purpose. There's petty things that go on between people, which are not really the best. I don't get involved in that stuff, but there is good in a lot of what people are doing because people are trying to add good energy into the world, not bad. A lot of it is about lifting humanity and kind of lifting ourselves, understanding ourselves, and connecting with ourselves. That's what I'm seeing in a lot of the spiritual community right now.
You're going to run into the Christian.
Of course.
Who, when they're hearing this conversation, they're going to go in the direction of you need to call on Christ.
And that's okay.
Well, I'm just saying.
A lot of them already feel that way about me. So that's why I'm coming from a very open place because a lot of very religious people look at what I do and feel like what I do is evil.
Yes.
And what I'm doing is really helping people.
Well, in my perspective,
okay
it's not either. Because I've sat with you in many conversations and asked you questions and picked your brain, and I've never, in my personal experience, come across anything that seemed dark or negative from you.
Never.
Only like, I'm put in this situation and I'm doing my best to help you in whatever way I can, based off the fact that I'm already in this spot.
Absolutely.
That's always been my interpretation of what you're doing. So anyway, I just want to make that very clear and reiterate that, we're just touching on this topic and talking about it because it is something that is out there and exists.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's something that we should be aware of. And do we need to put energy towards it? No, but we need to be aware of it. I had a question here that I wanted to kind of pop into, which is that I and a lot of other people see specific numbers like everywhere. Like for me, I see 33, 333, like everywhere. When me and you literally sat down for this conversation, it was 11:11.
Yes.
Right? Is that a communication source to some degree?
A lot of people are connected to numerology and numbers that way. And I see that gaining popularity lately around people putting meanings to certain numbers and things like that. I feel like sometimes it's almost like when you get deja vu. It's almost like a reminder that you're in the right place at the right time. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's like a little supportive, like, good job from spirit. I feel like a lot of it could be coincidental sometimes, but I am someone who sees my birthday almost every day on the clock. I see 7:24 every single day on the clock. When I'm not even trying to, I'll look over and be like, 7:24 again. So I feel like there is something to it. I don't really know what that is, though.
So you think that there is something to it, but do you think that it's possible that we're just looking for meaning in it?
People are always looking for something to make them feel like they're doing the right thing. And I feel like that's one of those things, but I do feel like there is only so many coincidences. So when you see it all the time, it's hard to not pay attention to it. So I do feel like there is something there, but what we're putting into it may be a little bit more than what it is. I don't know. I've never really looked into it, but it definitely is a thing.
Since you mentioned purpose and people looking for purpose, and which is very relevant, we're always looking for something, deeper meanings in things that. What is your summary of the purpose of being here in this world?
We are here to help and support each other while we learn. That's what I feel like. School, life is a school. We're here to learn lessons. I feel like we all come down here to learn different things, and that's why our existences are all so different. Because we've all, I feel like, been here, most of us, before, in my opinion. But I do feel like it's just a big lesson, and you're learning as you go. And a lot of it is about how you treat each other while you're here.
I hear not just you, but a lot of people refer to this world as school, right? Or that we're being educated, we're learning things here, and we're referring it to a school setting. But the things that happen in this world, the darkness that's here, the trauma, the evil, the sadness, the lamenting, all of these things that are very difficult to digest. I mean, it's like saying, like, you know what? Let's put a rabid dog in a classroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so why is it that we can't learn or go to school in a place that doesn't have the pain, death, and suffering that we experience here?
Because I mean, I know I learned this way. Learning the hard way is usually how things stick. And learning from experience is why we're here. We're here to experience and live things. And some people's experiences that they have to have during their lifetime are of those, that despair energy, feeling lost. Some people go through terrible health issues from birth that they have to figure out how to navigate their whole life. So it all depends on really what you're here to strengthen, work on. I will say that when you're here and you're dealing with like a physical ailment or something terrible like that and you pass, from experience, almost always the spirit is healed from that physical ailment once they pass. So when you're removed from your body, you're not experiencing that anymore. So what that tells me is that's purely for your life path in that moment here, because when you exit, it's gone. You leave it here.
Even to this day, I'm still wondering how that serves us. And I don't think there's really a right answer
there
for it.
There isn't, because nobody wants to experience that. Nobody wants to see anybody experience that. But there has to be a divine reason why the good and the bad has to be so extreme at times, because that's what I feel like this life is. It's a series of really high highs and really low lows, you know?
It's the full spectrum.
Absolutely. And you have to have both to, appreciate the other, kind of figure that out.
Okay. Left field question. What are your thoughts on aliens?
I believe in aliens. I think that it would be foolish to think we are the only living creatures in this universe. I feel like there's absolutely other life forms and life beings in this
Are they
universe.
all connected to source too?
I feel like they come from different source than we do. We are of a human source. I feel like different entities come from different sources.
Does that include animals?
Animals, I feel like, come from our source, but they are of a pure vibration. They vibrate on a much higher level than we do as humans. They come in purely to exist and love. Animals rarely have negative vibrations attached to them. They are just...
even something like a lion or a tiger.
Because it's purely carnal what they experience. If they're killing something, it's for the food chain to survive, survival.
It's not malicious.
It's never malicious unless they're provoked, and that's protection.
Defense.
Yeah.
Right. Your thoughts on aliens are that they exist, but they're not from the same source.
Correct. I feel like they come from a different source.
So then there's multiple gods, essentially.
There's probably multiple universes that we don't even know about. I feel like there's such a vastness when you go out into space like that we have not even discovered. It's like the ocean. We don't even know half of what's in there because we can't explore it. So I feel like there's a possibility there. Absolutely, there could be more sources, more gods, for sure.
Right, because everything came from the same spot, or do you think that all of it kind of is coming from different places, different things?
I feel like everything came from one source in this world. I feel like everything is interconnected to one source, for sure.
Okay.
And that's how we're all connected to each other, how human beings are all connected, how we're connected to animals, because while we're here, we are all of one. We're all experiencing it together. We are all connected. For me, that's like a humanist type of a connection.
Going back into your mediumship, we never really understood fully how you came to become like accepting of it, because a lot of people have that intuition, a lot of people see things, but not everybody decides, okay, this is my life path, this is the direction I want to go in. So I would like to get back to that real quick before I ask you the next series of questions, which is, how did you actually decide at the end of the day that this is what I'm going to do?
It's so interesting because I really never made that decision. It was kind of made for me. So I did sit with that medium, found out I had the gift. I worked with her for a couple of years and developed it. Got comfortable with it. It came a lot more naturally to me than I thought it would in the time. But then I took my crystal business to the Lunar Fair space. And when I did that, it was the first time I had gone out into the event world. I'd never done in-person markets. So I was doing tarot readings my whole life. I always was connected to psychic energy. I always was interested in that. So I said, maybe I'll just do a couple tarot readings in the back of my booth and just see how it goes, because I'd been taking these classes or whatever. So I did it for the first couple fairs and I liked it. And then I had got to the point in my mediumship where I felt like maybe I wanted to try it out. So I put out a little thing that said like, hey, I'm going to take 2 appointments at this fair. If you want to book one of these times, let me know. So I took those appointments and I was surprised with how it was received. And then I just randomly was asked by the people in the fair, like, hey, are you a showman? Have you ever done a gallery reading? We need someone to do a gallery reading. So you were a medium. Are you interested? And I was like, well, I guess I was learning how to do gallery readings in school, so I was like, I guess I could do that.
And what is a gallery reading?
It's just to do a reading for a group of people standing in front of you. It's
for
like a crowd reading. Yeah. So I just jumped in and did it. I really just never really thought I was going to make it a thing, and then it turned into private sittings and referrals, and it's turned into its own beast at this point, but it just kind of happened. I really never went into it looking to do it.
Well, since you brought up the crystal business is kind of what led you in that direction, right? That was like the spark. Can I ask you, crystals are largely used as spiritual tools in many different spiritual practices. We're now seeing it across the board even. And since you sell crystals yourself, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on the crystal energy properties?
I love that you asked me that question. I have an unpopular opinion about it. So I feel like the way you work with crystals is purely intentional. So I could tell you that this crystal is for love, right? I could hand you a rose quartz and be like, use this for love, any kind of love you want to use it for, which is the generalized idea. But what if I hand you that crystal and you don't feel love from it? What if you feel like it makes you want to be motivated and you want to be more confident and ambitious? What if that drives you? Who am I to tell you that you're wrong? So I feel like it's intentional. I feel like the properties were put there over time by people just kind of going along with what someone said, to kind of give it like a little bit of a reason to make people want to buy them.
I feel like it's become institutionalized.
Yeah, it really has. But I also had an experience early on with another wholesaler where they mined some new crystal. I don't remember what it was. And so they gave me some information on it, and they were like, oh, I'm the only one who's selling this because I've discovered it in this mine. They had articles and everything about it. I asked, I was like, well, you discovered this, so like, can you tell me, like, what would you use it for? Like, what would you use it for, like, spiritually? Like, if I'm selling to somebody, what would I tell them the properties of it are? And this person who discovered it, I mean, I guess they were a miner, but they looked at me and they were like, it's whatever you want it to be. And so I'm like, well, if you found it and you're telling me that, then why am I listening to what everybody's telling me that this crystal does this crystal does that, this crystal does this? I feel like there is something to that, because I do associate crystals with chakras in the body, and that's a whole other thing.
Well, color and vibration go hand in hand. The
energy, absolutely. But I feel like to give things specific purposes is a detriment, because I feel like when you're choosing something to work with energetically, it should be what you feel and not what someone's telling you to feel. I don't know if I've ever told you this, I choose all of the pieces that I sell using my clairsentience, which is my psychic feeling. So when I walk around your warehouse, I spend a lot of time here when I'm here because I look at everything. I like to pick up things, hold them for a minute, sometimes I put them down. I can feel how high and pure the energy is of a specific piece when I hold it. Like, I literally can feel the energy in my hands. And I can tell if someone needs that, if someone's coming to me to find that, if I'm going to have a customer for that. And I like to pair people with crystals that way. So for me, it's all about the way it feels, not so much about what it says on paper it does.
Well, I'll be honest about it, and it's not something that I ever really talk about, but I also feel that from the stone. I can walk past a stone and it'll literally yell at me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's happened to me many, many times. And again, it's not my narrative, it's not the direction I want to go in, nor if someone asks me about it, I will tell them exactly that. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not an authority. I don't know how you're going to connect to something, but they have literally yelled across the table at me, and that's why I've amassed such a humongous collection. But also at the same time, I think it's really important that, this industry, and I'm not trying to go too deep into crystals, but before New Age hit in this industry, it was all mineralogy.
Oh yeah.
It was rock hounding, mineralogy, collecting. New Age kind of crept its way into this industry and divided church and state.
The miners hate it.
They do.
Yeah. I go to gem shows, they hate it.
They do. And I really took a great stance because I'm right in the middle. I understand both worlds of it completely.
That's true, yeah.
And I also connect to both sides of it completely, which makes it kind of hard for me to connect to one side or the other because I am neutral to some degree and I am in the middle. But I really do want to emphasize one more time that your narrative around that is so accurate from my perspective that you need to decide what works for you.
Absolutely.
You need to feel what works for you. And that's always my thing across the board.
That's true energy work. So to have somebody tell you what to do you're working with your own energy. So I feel like that's true energy work, to feel it.
It's a really difficult job that you've taken on. And it's interesting. I sat down with somebody else recently, and I was asking them, "What is your job description?" And they were like, "Well, I don't consider what I do a job," and all, which again, it's very admirable as well. But at the same time, we all have a description, and we all have a responsibility that we're supposed to be maintaining in our duties, right? And so again, if I'm coming before you and I'm relying on you to perform this service that I'm paying you for, then I do have an expectation.
Yeah.
And I am putting emphasis on what I believe your responsibility to be in relation to what's going on, right?
Yes.
And so I think that what's really important for people to understand about someone who's doing what you do is that you are just a channel for information. And you are putting yourself vulnerably out there for that to happen for somebody.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that it's got to be stressful at times, especially for you, who's standing on a soapbox, tap dancing, while there's a group of people around you, and you're just spewing out information and got to be thinking on a personal level, I hope I'm hitting.
I hope I'm hitting because people need to receive it. So it's almost the expectation I hold on myself is my interpretation. They're always going to give me the information. Am I interpreting it correctly? Am I picking the right person in the crowd to deliver the information to? Because again, the way I work, I could pick someone out of the crowd and be like, hey, I want to work with you, give it a minute and pull out the spirit that's with you. I choose to talk about the spirit first and then try to find the person in the crowd that the spirit is looking to connect with. So I make it harder for myself on that level because I feel like it just makes it that much more impactful for people to be like, you knew it was for me. Like they hear me talking about the person going, oh my God, that's my person. And then I say, can I work with you? And you can feel it when it hits.
What would you say is your percentage of accuracy?
I mean, I have a lot of healthy ego in a lot of things, but not with this type of work. I'm very humble about it. So I try to be very realistically, I would give myself an 85% accuracy.
So how can someone who is not a medium communicate? Is that possible?
Absolutely. I tell people this all the time. We all come from that source, so we are all connected to it. Some of us are just more sensitive to it than others. So everybody has the ability. Anybody can sit down and really try to open it up. It's just easier for some than it is for others.
Do you recommend that?
Some people, yes. Some people, it can be too intense and a lot for them. It could be a little bit too much to handle, and they're not really sure how to receive the energy.
Could you pull something through that you don't want to connect to when you open it?
Absolutely. Protection rituals are very important if you're going to start working with spirit. And I learned that the hard way because you can get attachments. Things can kind of mask and hide in other things and come through and try to cling to you just to siphon off your energy source. And then you just start feeling yucky. You feel run down. It really just pulls the energy from you. So I always tell people to, if you work with guides or spirit guides, ask them to come in and protect you. You can do one of those, they say like a white light, but I like to do violet light. You just imagine it encompassing your whole body, your whole area to kind of just barrier, shield stuff. That's always a good place to start. I would never go into any kind of spirit work without setting some sort of a boundary.
So you wouldn't recommend the layman just being like, hey, I'm here and I'm open?
If you feel like, say you had someone that passed that you feel is around you and you're talking to them in the moment because you felt a sign or something, that's okay. I wouldn't put like a cap on that. But I'd say if you're going to intentionally go in and raise your vibration into the spirit world to see what's around and pull on things that maybe you're not familiar with, I would absolutely enact a boundary.
So then what is your perspective on things like the Ouija board?
I hate them.
Okay.
Like hard hate. And I don't hate many things,
Why?
but I hate them.
Why?
Because they open up energy portals to things that you don't know what's on the other side.
But it's just like a board game that's sold in Toys R Us.
It is, but there's something about the energy you put into it. It doesn't have to do with the physicality. People make them all the time. I see them sold at markets. You can wood burn them. People sell them all the time. The energy, for me, I think, is the energy you're putting into it, that you're allowing something to kind of come in and move it for you. So you're opening up your intentions to allow something to come in and control you.
So it's not necessarily the board itself, it's you and your relationship with it.
I feel like a lot of it has to do with the symbolism of the board and the way it's always been used, that in a ritual manner that could open a portal to something, and
So-
once you open it, you don't necessarily know how to close it.
So your recommendation to the kids is don't play with it.
Don't play with it. I had one in my house, and that my husband brought home that I didn't even know was there for like 3 months, and all these terrible things started
I
happening.
remember you telling me this.
I told him, like, get it out of here. I was like, go put it in the dumpster down the street. I don't care. I just don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
And he got rid of it, and everything did improve. I ended up moving from that house not too long after that.
What is your take then on things like Magic 8 balls or things like that?
I think some of that stuff is fun. Like a Magic 8 Ball, I think is just pure fun. But I think there is intention. It's like card pulling. It's just the luck of the draw, the chance of it all. And when it hits and it's coincidental, it's like fun.
So Ouija board different than...
I feel like there's a little bit more of an energy attached to a Ouija board.
Right, okay.
And I didn't mean to downplay tarot cards either, but I feel like it's all about how you use them. I use them as a guide for my psychic work. I don't need the cards. I always say that I don't need anything to do what I do. I can just sit in front of you and do it.
It's also nice to have a tool like that.
People like to see things.
People are visual.
Yes.
So it's nice for people to be able to see that. Okay, rapid fire questions. If you could only own one book, what would it be?
One book. That is so hard.
That's the point.
One book. I read a lot of autobiographies, so that's why I'm like, what's the one that's most important to me? So this is gonna sound really weird, but I really loved this biography that I read. This is good. This is why I'm messy and weird and chaotic. It was LaToya Jackson's autobiography. I don't know if you're familiar with
that
it.
is random.
So off.
That is random AF.
It really is. So this is probably one of the favorite books that I've ever read. I like to read real life experiences.
So LaToya Jackson's
LaToya Jackson. So I don't remember exactly what the name of it was, but I read it many years ago, and I always tell people whenever they ask me about books to read this book. So she, obviously I think she had a ghostwriter. I don't think she wrote it herself. I don't know for sure. But it was about her escaping an abusive relationship from overseas, like how she was saved, and like it was the most gripping read I feel like that I've ever read. But for me, it just was empowering.
Okay.
I read it and I got an empowering energy from it. I don't read a lot, so for me that would probably be the book. If you wanted something intelligent,
No, that was it.
Okay, that was it.
That was it.
All right.
What is your favorite trait found in humanity?
Compassion, for sure. Just compassion, loving each other. That's it.
What is your least favorite trait found in humanity?
Manipulation.
Well, interesting enough, next question. Are you an honest person?
Absolutely. To my core. Authenticity is the only thing that I will accept in my life.
Okay. Are you a fair person?
Yes.
If you could only give one piece of advice to a stranger, what would it be?
Be true to yourself.
If you could only give one piece of advice to yourself, what would it be?
Stop holding yourself back.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being here. I hope that whoever watches this gets something valuable out of it. And let's go do some shopping.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure.